Yo, what's up, everyone? This is Nick Can't Mine here from Twitter and Bitcoin Magazine, and today we have another episode of Meet the Taco Plebs. Today's guest is Kaz from Swan Bitcoin and the host of the Down the Rabbit Hole podcast. Kaz, what's up, dude?
Hey, what's up, Nick? Happy to be here.
Thank you, dude. Happy you decided to come on the show.
Yeah, I mean, I got the invite, of course. I'm always down to talk about Bitcoin.
So I just want to congratulate you right off the bat. I saw you join Swan Bitcoin the other day, dude. That's awesome to hear.
Yeah, hey, thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I'm excited. I want to be working more often in Bitcoin, so hopefully I can get something full time. That'd be cool.
Can I ask what's your role over there? What do you do?
Yeah, so I just joined part-time to help out with some of the content they're launching around their newsletters. So yeah, I'm going to be working on that with Mark Moss and, maybe a couple more, but that's just it for now. And then, hopefully something more comes out of it soon.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome to hear. So moving into my first question is, I want to know your Bitcoin rabbit hole story. How did you find Bitcoin and fall down the rabbit hole?
Yeah. So just like every great Bitcoin rabbit hole story, the first time I found it, I did not buy it. I didn't even know what it was. So yeah. So let's start, I guess, at the beginning. This is like circa 2013, 14. I'm like a senior in high school taking a government class. And I really started to explore, my interest in politics and government and economics. At the time, my interest in government and politics. At the time, I thought I wanted to go into politics. Obviously, a lot's changed since then. But yeah, I was learning about all these different concepts, and I was like, man, I need to learn more about how money works, because I can see that, money pretty much rules this entire system. So somewhere during that year, I don't remember exactly where, I watched the documentary, The Zeitgeist, which is terrible, by the way, just terrible. But it actually opened my eyes a lot to the system of the money and how broken the money is. And so after I watched this documentary, I went on this thread, and, I was reading about all these different things, and somehow stumbled across Bitcoin, senior in high school, and didn't even really give it the time of day. I was like, oh, I see this word, don't really think anything of it, and nothing happens. And then fast forward a couple of years, I'm now in college at this point, studying technology, studying economics, and I stumbled across Bitcoin again. This time was from a completely different lens, though. So now at this point in my life, I think I'm just like the biggest tech nerd. And I'm super into, internet privacy and computer security. And, I'm like, I've got VPNs everywhere at this point, like on my mobile phone. I'm like, I'm not even going to touch the ClearNet without a VPN. I was like, I was at this stage my sophomore year, and then found Bitcoin again. This time was through the lens of like, oh, whoa, you can use this currency to buy drugs on the internet. I was like, well, I'm too scared to do that. I'm not going to do that. But I was like, I think this is pretty cool. And I started looking into it more. And yeah, that's when it really piqued my interest.
I have a lot of similarities in your story. I also found Bitcoin in my senior year as I was starting to get more interested in politics and learn how money works.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait, so what's your story? If you can just give it brief. I know I'm not the podcaster, or I'm not the interviewer here.
Yeah. It was my senior year of high school, and it was during the 2017 bull run, and I was just on my computer after class one day, a couple hours before I had to go to soccer practice, and my brother and his friends just came downstairs, and they were talking about Bitcoin, and that got me down the rabbit hole. And ever since then, I was taking AP government, and I started paying more attention in class and learning more about that and just how money works in general.
Yeah, it's funny. I was lucky. It was actually 2016 for me. I wish it would have been earlier, but.
So when you were in university studying economics, how was that? I'm interested in to know more about, like, do they just teach you a bunch of like Keynesian like stuff, or?
Yeah. It's a lot of charts that sort of make you believe that what they're teaching you backs it up, because it's like, oh, look, well, we basically decided this is how things work, and then here's the math, and here's these pretty graphs that show you how the, this backs up the math that we're saying is true. So, when I went into college, I didn't have any concept of, I said I was interested in money, but I was in no shape interested in Austrian economics. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even know there was really a difference in schools of thought in economics. I just knew that, I was going to go to college, and I was like, well, this seems like, something that has a fundamental impact on everything. It will impact my personal life, my personal finances. It will impact, whenever I want to start a business. It will impact, if I want to go into politics like I thought I did, having a concept on the broader money supply is a pretty valuable thing. But overall, yeah, I mean, I took it, I got a degree in it, and I totally retaught myself while I was doing it. Because, then I discovered Bitcoin. Then I went down the rabbit hole of Austrian economics. So as I was studying Keynesian economics and getting a degree in it, I was also learning Austrian economics, to the point that it was just like, I think this is pointless what I'm learning, but I'm going to do it anyway, just so I can have the credential to say that I learned it, to know that it's bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, dude, when I found out about Austrian economics, I didn't even know that there was multiple types of economics. I thought there was only one type, and that was, the type that mainstream media uses, the type that, central banks use and universities teach. But that's pretty funny, dude. There's a lot of similarities between you and me in that sense. When you were learning about Bitcoin and Austrian economics, did it ever did you ever write any papers that your professors hated, or did you ever challenge them in class or anything?
So I was actually kind of known for being I'm still a huge econ nerd. We rip on Keynesian economics, but I still read all the time about economics. Even books that aren't Austrian, I'll still sometimes read them if they're just, some of the newer stuff in behavioral economics, I think is interesting. I don't agree with all of it, but it's interesting. But I was always the type of person to sit there and challenge, just because the classes I was taking, once you get past at least my experience, once I got past the big intro classes in econ, the classes are really small. You're in a class of 20 people instead of 300 or 400, like the intros were. So at that point, I was very vocal. I was yeah, I completely don't agree with this. The whole concept of aggregate demand, I still don't agree with, because it's just the sum of individual preferences. And then you're trying to basically conjecture something completely different by saying, oh, in an aggregate, it behaves differently. It's no. In aggregate, it's just the sum of all of its parts. Everybody still behaves the same way. So that was something that I disagreed with a lot, especially in macro. There are things in micro that I would say apply more to the Austrian. There's a similarity between what's in the Keynesian and the Austrian school of thought, more on the micro level, way more than there is on the macro level. Mm-hmm. Macro doesn't exist a whole lot in Austrian.
Yeah, dude, I love to hear that. When I went to 2 years of school before leaving, and I like to challenge my professors as well, especially in my essays, just bringing up more Austrian and Bitcoin related stuff. And one of them actually liked it. One of them, I think, was a closet Bitcoiner. He just really enjoyed my articles and always gave me A's on them. Some of my other professors, not so much, but I'm sure you've changed a lot since, you discovered Bitcoin for the first time in high school. And I want to know, how has Bitcoin changed your life personally?
Yeah. So the classic meme, Bitcoin changes you. Bitcoin has changed me a lot, obviously, from, how I view the world from an economics lens, but it's changed things, even my diet, my overall just optimism, how I manage my personal finances, how I view myself as a person has changed. So starting a podcast, like my podcast that I started in July 2 years ago, I could have never seen myself doing that. If you would have asked me, hey, in 2 years, or if you would have said to me, hey, in 2 years, you're going to have a podcast and it's going to be about Bitcoin, I would say, well, the Bitcoin thing doesn't surprise me, but the podcast thing does. I just feel like I don't really have a lot that I want to share with the world about this yet. I mean, I had for a long time, I was a NIM on Twitter and I followed all these people but I'd lurked in the shadows. Like I got into Bitcoin through privacy. So for me to then come out and intentionally dox myself, like I spent a lot of time thinking, I was like, am I going to do the whole podcast like through a NIM? Am I going to do it through a voice, changer? Am I going to attach it to my real identity? Like, what am I going to do with this? Because my entire Bitcoin life and Bitcoin Twitter that I had developed was through a NIM that I still, the people that know Kaz now don't know who my NIM is. So I'm still keeping that separate. So that's something that's changed for me fundamentally. And then how I think about time. So whenever we talk about in the Bitcoin standard, time preference, that was some concept, whether in all my years of school and all my years of reading and studying, I had never heard of time preference until Safedin. So I don't know if I just missed that in Austrian whenever I missed it, but that it never really like sunk in until whenever I read the Bitcoin standard. And now that concept of time preference, I pretty much apply to everything. And it's really weird because it's not just about financial decisions and, foregoing the short-term urge for the long-term benefit. I mean, that principle itself can be applied to much more than just money. And, it can be applied to your diet and working out and, spending time and talking to your friends or calling your family or, waking up in the morning and like intentionally with a thought of like, I'm going to make some time and say three minutes of hello to my little puppy before I start working, because there's just like this cycle that you can get into in life where you like wake up and you check your phone and then you start working. And it's like, well, that's been the last year of life for a lot of people because of the pandemic. But, taking time to intentionally like ground yourself before you step in and like do what you have to do. All of those things, came out of Bitcoin. My personality now, since I've been in Bitcoin for 5 or 6 years now, like I can see it molding and changing like every single day. It's just like the conviction grows and my personality is growing and changing along with it.
So when you started your podcast, what made you initially want to start a podcast, and how's the experience been so far, and what have you learned from it?
Yeah, so there were a couple of things that led to it. I was always like the Uncle Jam in my friend group, obviously around Bitcoin. Like they were calling me Bitcoin Bycko and stuff in college, like because I was just really into it. So if anybody ever had a question, or whenever we went through the 2017 cycle, or whatever happened, I'm always the person that my friends and even people that are acquaintances would just reach out to because they knew that. So I was getting a lot of questions, and I was like, man, I need to like sort of have a way to spread my knowledge at the same time and not have to have all these one-on-one individual conversations saying the exact same thing over and over again. So I was like, well, I need a way to sort of teach everybody at once. And I was like, I started listening to a lot of them, and I was like, man, I can hang with all these people. Like I know just as much as they do. Like they're just guys that started doing this, and like that now they have a show. I was like, there's literally no reason why I can't. And then I had that thought that thought probably happened like the very beginning of 2020 and then like by the time I really got around to starting it, and it was like July. So, but there was a couple months, like I probably really was like, okay, I'm going to do this in like March. And then I was like, okay, I need to make a logo. I was like, then I spent so much time thinking about like how I was going to structure the episodes and all this stuff. And I was like, then I had to go through that, like we just talked about, intentionally doxing myself and then basically creating a new identity, which was me. And then saying, okay, now none of these people know me. And how am I going to get them all to come on my show? So then I had to sort of like rebuild a reputation around my real identity to sort of get guests to come on the show. And the answer to this, your second question was, it's been great. Like, it's been phenomenal. I absolutely love it. Like, it's so much fun. Every single person I've had on the show has been just phenomenal. And we become friends after that. And then we just like start chatting and like DMing each other. It's great. Like, I love it.
That's awesome to hear, man. I also wanted to touch on the time preference part that you mentioned. Time preference, I see it as living low time preference is just like transferring your value and your energy into the future. And then, it's worth more and you can, purchase more with it or do more with it, have more time to do stuff. How do you see people today? Are they more high time preference or low time preference? And what do you think has to change what are your thoughts on like the mass people in general today? They're in their time preference.
Well, I think today that money is evaporating from people before they can really understand how important it is to save it. So people my age, you can call it materialism. I think that's part of it. You could say it's because of advertising and the media forces people to like compulsively purchase. I don't know if it's as much as that. Of course that has a part in it, but I think the major part is that the money that they are using, the currency in society, the dollar, is losing value every single day. And I think the vast majority of people don't really recognize that. But the second order effects that come along with inflation and debasement, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but basically just like come about into society, as a result of the money supply like expanding and people not being able to purchase as much. Like even just in 2020 alone, like the price of meat and the price of eggs and things, I saw a report, they were going up a couple dollars a piece. Like the average person, how often like do you think the normal 25-year-old is going out and purchasing eggs? Okay, when I think of the normal 25-year-old, I don't even think they eat most of their meals at home. So like they're going to go out, they're going to like probably don't have anything in their kitchen because they don't eat most of their meals at home. And so they just think, okay, well, I'm just going to go order food, or I'm going to go grab food, or I'm going to, whatever, I'm going to Uber Eats it. And it's like, just because of convenience. And it's like, oh, sure, I'll pay $9 more than my $10 meal to get it like delivered to me. So I think these are all things that are like coming as a result of the money supply. And basically, governments and central banks, not just one, globally, have decided that like they're going to devalue the money. And consumerism and materialism and high time preference, I think, all just come as a result of society decaying from that.
Yeah, it seems like you're just in like what doesn't seem like it is. You're incentivized by the financial system, by the fiat financial system, just spend, 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 spend. Don't save at all. And I think that's really damaging to a society. I saw a stat that like it was like a certain amount. It was like close to half of Americans don't even have like a $400 emergency fund saved up. So like that's really worrying. And I think Bitcoin makes savings cool again. And that's something I find fascinating about Bitcoin. And that leads me into my next question of, out of all the things about Bitcoin and everything involved in it, what is like the most amazing thing about Bitcoin to you and why?
This has changed constantly. And there's always been, like, if you ask me this question all throughout my experience in Bitcoin, I've always probably had a different answer, up until probably like the last year and a half or so, when it really clicked to me, because it's not just about having 21 million, even though that's it's extremely, extremely important. But how do you enforce 21 million? And how do you make sure that 21 million isn't reached quicker? And that's through the difficulty adjustment. So the difficulty adjustment, I'm sure most people into Bitcoin know, but if you don't know, around every 2 weeks or so, the difficulty for the mining algorithm behind Bitcoin readjusts, and this is what keeps that 21 million pretty much intact. This is the reason why that like Bitcoin is going to eat gold as basically as a store of value, because gold right now, what is stopping, a new gold miner from coming up and, mining more gold and pulling it out of the earth? Nothing, absolutely nothing. As if the price tomorrow of gold shot up $2,000 and it's now at $4,000 for an ounce of gold, more people would come on and start mining, and then it would drive the price of gold back down to 2,000 or somewhere around wherever gold's actual equilibrium is. Then those miners would then not be profitable and they would stop again. And it's just this cycle of constantly reaching a new equilibrium. Okay. And that's what this difficulty adjustment does, but it keeps us from, so if we said, okay, all the gold in the world, there's only this amount, there's only 21 million ounces. And the first, once you pull those 21 million ounces out of the earth, all the gold is gone. Okay. If you did that, if you told people that, everyone in the world would go start a gold mining company. Okay. And now this is what's so crucial about the difficulty adjustment, is it keeps that from happening. So yes, 21 million is forever. 21 million is etched in stone. But to keep, what is stopping every person in the world from just going and grabbing a Bitcoin miner and trying to grab as much as they can before the 21 million's gone? Oh yeah, it's this difficulty adjustment that readjusts and says, okay, now more people are mining. It's now exponentially harder to receive the subsidy, the block subsidy, and vice versa. If more people drop off, now the price of Bitcoin has gone down or something in a certain part of the area or a certain part of the world where the energy is more expensive. Maybe you have to shut mining off because it's not profitable anymore. Okay. The people that are mining, boom, now it's easier for them. It's this equilibrium, and it's so beautiful.
You just took the words out of my mouth at the end. It's so beautiful how Bitcoin just constantly works just like clockwork and adjusts whenever it needs to. It's almost like a living, breathing organism, with the nodes of the heartbeat, and we're all Bitcoin slaves working to the miners are the slaves really working to produce the Bitcoin. It's a really fascinating system. And I like how you said at the beginning, you said your opinion has changed constantly about your favorite thing about Bitcoin. And I think that's really good because Bitcoin is constantly changing. I think I can say the same for me. The deeper down you go the rabbit hole, you just learn more and more really cool, fascinating things about Bitcoin. And I've been in for a while, but I know I still have so much left to learn. And I constantly am learning new things from other Bitcoiners on Twitter. And the one thing that's really good about this, as you touched on, is that with Bitcoin, people can't just, start mass producing it and oversaturate the market with, more Bitcoin to the point where it's just not even worth anything anymore. So the difficulty adjustment it's brilliant.
It really is.
Mm-hmm. So
it's crucial the number go up, baby. That's probably my favorite part of Bitcoin. The number go up, because if the number didn't go up, we probably wouldn't be here. But yeah, I think the difficulty adjustment's pretty paramount. The number go up.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome, dude. And I know you've been enjoying number go up the past couple of months because it's been going up like crazy.
Yeah, it's like number go up, you're no longer crazy. It's like my family's like, okay, maybe you're not crazy.
It changes the psychology of people a little bit. When we were at 3K earlier this year, people were like, oh, Bitcoin? I would never buy that. That's dead. But now we were at 40,000 not too long ago. And those same people who say that say maybe I should get myself a little bit of this Bitcoin. It might catch on.
Yeah. And actually, so going back to what we were talking about earlier, the hardest people to convince are the people that studied Keynesian economics in college.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's I can totally see that. And that actually leads me perfectly into my next question is, how would you advise someone to learn about Bitcoin? Do you have any favorite podcasts, articles, or books?
Yeah, so lots of podcasts and books, but always my first advice to everyone is to just go buy it. And so I try to make it as easy as possible to get some, like, I'll say, hey, I'll sit here with you. We'll get you up and you'll be able to buy Bitcoin as soon as possible. Okay. If they just buy even $10 worth of Bitcoin, it sort of gets that, it like scratches that itch for them. It's like, okay, it's like, wait, or it creates the itch. And then they have to satisfy that urge by, okay, like they're like, what is this? And okay, now they have to go learn about it. Okay. So I always find it easier if I I bought the Bitcoin Standard for so many people, and it's literally sitting on people's shelves that have never read it. But the people who actually go and buy Bitcoin first and they own it and they're like, oh, wait, and then they send it to themselves and they put it in like Blue Wallet and they put it in their own self-custody. And they're like, wait, what? Like the first time you send a Bitcoin transaction to yourself in your own wallet, that's when you get it. You're like, whoa, this is crazy. You don't need to read it. It's like, I have a problem with too much theory, and that's the problem with school. Like for me, I'm the type of person, just throw it to me and I'll figure it out because I need to play with it and poke around with it and figure out how it works. But if you tell me to go read about something I'm like, yeah, sure. I'm smart. Like I can read, I can figure out what it is. But the level of abstraction you have away from that, it's like, you don't know really what it is. It's like, so I just started doing jujitsu. And in jujitsu, like someone can show you a move. I can sit there and watch somebody do a move. Does that mean I'm going to go there and do it exactly right? It's like, I could probably pass. It's like, yeah, I could see it a couple times, be like, yeah, I can do that. But you're not going to really know how to do it until you feel it. And I feel that same concept about Bitcoin. You just need to go buy it. And then you'll be like, okay, now I need to figure out what the hell this is. So after that point, first recommendation for a book is always the Bitcoin Standard. That's like the Bible of Bitcoin. And I tell people to get on Bitcoin Twitter. So I actually made a list. I have a running list now of like some of my favorites. So from some of my normie friends. So whenever they join, I send them just this notes doc that has, 100 accounts on it. I'm like, follow these people in Bitcoin Twitter. And then, it's like then I go my podcast route, Tales from the Crypt, one of my favorites, Bitcoin Rapid Fire, and then Stephen Livera. Those are like three of my personal go-tos, depending on what I'm trying to get to at the time. Like Tales from the Crypt is like, it's like I'm chill, listening to Rabbit Hole Recap. Bitcoin Rapid Fire is like more esoteric. And then Stephen Livera is like, if I'm trying to like learn something pretty technical. And that's usually what I do. And then, there's an endless amount of books and good material that you guys are like putting out with Bitcoin Magazine. Like, I have countless recommendations for my friends. The problem is they don't get through like the first like 5, but really we don't need it. If I have a friend that's like comes back, like they're deep, like they're fine. They don't need me anymore.
Yeah. I really like that, getting some skin in the game, and then that incentivizes you to like want to learn more, because it's like, okay, well now I have this and I've actually put some of my physical value into it. It's probably going to be a good idea if I go learn about it more. I think that's a very good psychological trick. And I really think it's generous that you buy the Bitcoin Standard for a bunch of other people. And I've noticed that that's a common trait amongst Bitcoiners. My first book, like Bitcoin book I ever had, is the Little Book of Bitcoin. And I got that bought. White Rabbit from Twitter, shout out to White Rabbit. He got banned, so he's been off for a little bit. But he bought me my very first Bitcoin book, and then he offered to buy me like 10 extra copies to pass out to people. And I just thought that was super generous, dude. I have the book right here in my hands. It's on my desk with a bunch of other, money books and stuff. But, dude, you're paying it forward, dude. That goes a long way. Like, that's good to hear.
Hey, I like it. That's what I try to do. That's why I'm in the Bitcoin space, trying to educate people. Like, the people I do it for, I mean, I think that's pretty generous of White Rabbit for doing it for, I mean, I don't know if you guys are friends or not, but if it was a random person on Twitter, maybe if I was having a good day, I'd buy it for him. But I typically do that for, some of my closer friends. Like if a good friend reaches out to me and is like, hey, okay, I'm really trying to learn about Bitcoin now. I'm like, okay, send me your address. And I just ship them like an Amazon copy of the Bitcoin standard. But yeah, I mean, I think that's our job as Bitcoiners. Somebody responded to, I put something out on Twitter. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was a couple weeks ago. And somebody I don't really know commented back on it and said, like, oh, who doesn't know about that? And I was like, well, like you shouldn't assume that like every single person is exactly in the same stage of the rabbit hole journey that you are. Like it takes every person a different amount of time to go, depending on how much time they have and how passionate they are and how good a material there is out there. So, I mean, the material that's out there now and all the content and all the people that are working around Bitcoin to make it easier for people makes me so bullish on it because that was not around a couple of years ago. Like it was so much harder. And the amount of noise there was, you couldn't find the signal through the noise a couple of years ago because it was just like crowded with shitcoin stuff. And it's like, there wasn't anything quality on YouTube. So like, I mean, that was one of the things I wanted to do with the podcast was, make it easier to like make sure that the people I know at least can get access to the right quality information. And then if they do something on their own and like they don't come to me, like that's not my problem. But at least I didn't lead them to, a scam or something where they lost their money. That's like if they come to me and they ask, I will always warn them. But, like I want to just lead people to the watering hole. Like, I mean, it's like Bitcoin is salvation. Like, and this is, you need to do this. Like your life depends on it. Your livelihood depends on it. Your happiness, your monetary stature, everything depends on it. Your freedom. And the way things are moving in the world, I don't understand how people can look at what's happening and say, okay, I want to own an asset that is an insurance policy on all of this just mucus that's going on in government.
Mm-hmm. One thing I wanted to touch on that you said is the quality of Bitcoin resources today is a lot better than, what it was back in the day in Bitcoin. And I am also extremely bullish on that because as we see more and more people come in, there's so many great minds coming into Bitcoin that are able to articulate Bitcoin and put it out in ways that make other newcomers to Bitcoin grasp it even easier. I mean, like I'm genuinely impressed with Michael Saylor and how he is able to put Bitcoin into words. It's like him and Robert Breedlove. It's just like poetry, and it's helped me learn a lot more. And I know it's helped a lot of other people learn a lot more. But I had one more question I wanted to ask you. And that was, what is your best Bitcoin pitch? I know this kind of has to be tailored for everyone individually, but typically, how do you shill the corn?
Yeah, so this was that infamous question that every Bitcoiner spends their entire life preparing for. Um, so I think, first of all, you should always be looking for a new nugget. Like for any, like this is one of those things about, we were just talking about like with education in the space, like there's so many articulate, intelligent people that are coming into the space that express Bitcoin and explain it in ways that you've never heard before. And every time like either I watch a YouTube video or, I watch somebody at BitBlock Boom, give a speech that said something differently. It's like, it's all the same thing. Like you're saying the same value statement really over and over in different ways. But the way that you say that, and this is like the power behind a meme too, like maybe in as few words as possible, how do you say that? But what I typically say to people is that like every single day, the money you save in dollars is slowly losing its value. Assets are pretty much hyperinflating at this point. Like I got an email the other day in this area in Dallas that I'm looking at moving to. Houses are increasing. The 1 year forecasted value increase in this one area of Dallas was like 14% on a house. That's like over $500,000. And I said, this is hyperinflation. If you are looking at this and you are an average person graduating college, your house is moving away from you quicker than you can ever buy it. If you're not earning exponentially more, if you're not an entrepreneur, you don't start a business or sell a company or whatever it is, your dream of owning a house is literally moving away from you every single day, even if your salary is increasing. Okay. So a lot of people that don't study money and don't look into Bitcoin and don't care about the stuff that we're talking about, don't worry about this. But this is like that statement I always go back to is you like Bitcoin is the savior to monetary debasement. So if our dollar is hyperinflating because, we're doing whatever, and you want to have something that you can hold yourself, not through a brokerage account, not through some company, not through somebody giving you permission to hold it. You just hold it yourself. That is like an insurance policy on basically crazy and reckless government monetary policy from crazy and reckless monetary policy from central banks and fiscal policy from governments.
Beautiful, dude. Beautiful. Literally the perfect way to end this podcast. So I want to thank you a lot for coming on, Kaz. It was great, dude. I'm going to have you on again in the future sometime. Before we sign off, is there any words of wisdom or any shout outs or anything you'd like to leave the audience with? Start using Swan Bitcoin. Start sacking every day. Pay attention to what these good guys like Nick are doing at Bitcoin Magazine. Perfect. If you want to, you're welcome to follow me on Twitter. It's BTC Bycko, BYCKO. And you're welcome to listen to my podcast as well. Yeah, definitely check out I'll have to have you on there, Nick. Dude, I'm game. Let's do it. Let's do it. So if you made it to the end of this video or this podcast, follow Kaz and check out his podcast. Both links will be down in the description below. Leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next week with a brand new guest. Peace. When auto invitation, hold on to the pavements. Hit me, love me, for grateful recognition. Heard the man's like a fish.